Hello and welcome to the Motherhood Village podcast. I am on with a very special guest. I have Catherine Collins, who is a nationally recognized entrepreneur and author of the book Mom's Got Money, a millennial mom's guide to managing money like a boss. Over the past decade, her writing and expertise have been featured in dozens of media outlets, including Good Morning America, Yahoo Finance, Forbes, U.S. News and World Report, Real Simple, The Huffington Post, Kiplinger, Investopedia, Business Insider, and many more. She recently co founded a personal development company called 5 Year You and launched a podcast by the same name. The ultimate goal of 5 Year You is to help 1 million people become their best selves in 5 years. Whew, lofty goal. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to speak with you. Okay, let's jump in. I always ask my guests to name a favorite book or one that has made a great impact for you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love to read, so I'm always listening to audiobooks. But the first book I read this year was James Clear's Habits book, and it really made a big impact on me. I couldn't believe, just from an entrepreneur's perspective, I couldn't believe that book has been the best-selling book of all of the books for multiple years
Yeah.
going. And it's because he's constantly promoting it. But I learned a lot of good tricks. I'm always looking for good habit tricks because I work from home, like by myself, and I'm always trying to hack my way into it.
Yeah, a friend of mine, I think she reads that book at the start of every year just
That's
to
a good
kind of
idea.
reinforce. And I'm sure every single time takes something away, differently, just
Mhm.
because different season and all the things. So thank you for sharing. Okay.
Sure.
Can you share some practical strategies or insights from your own journey in the work that you do with 5 Year You to help individuals break free from the shame and expectations imposed by themselves and society? And actually, it'll be a two-pointer. What kind of prompted the inspiration behind it to have the goal to help 1 million people become their best selves? And then answer that question.
Yeah, well, I think all of us are trying to find work that fulfills us. And I enjoy writing. And so in my work, primarily I'm a financial writer, but I also own a couple of different websites with a business partner. And he and I have been working together for 6 years. And we're both self-improvement junkies. We love a good self-improvement book. We're always like trying to, find ways to improve our systems and ourselves and our health and our mental health and all the different things. And so during the pandemic, we had this sort of frank but like inspiring conversation because we were, I guess just kind of going through the motions. And the question was, if you could start any business, and money wasn't an option and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? What would be the most fun, most exciting thing? Let's take all the barriers out of it. Let's take everything that might block us. And what would you do? And we were both like, man, we'd love to do a personal development company. We love helping people. And you have to look at if you're trying to figure out like what you're good at or how you help others, you look at what people say about you. Call up your friends and ask them, like, what do you come to me for?
Hmm.
And friends are not coming to me for like a good time. They're not coming to me to like go party downtown. Like, they're not coming to me for cooking tips. They're coming to me for like life tips. How do I get out of a slump? How do I pick myself up? I'm having a really bad day. Like, how can I turn it around? And it's the same for my partner, Andrew. And it's just something that we both love. And so instead of doing all of this other work where we just read and do the self improvement on our own to improve business, why not just dive right in and make self improvement the business? And so we started the podcast. We're just over 20 episodes in, created a course, and we're really loving it and having a great time with it. And the core of our message, and this really answers your first question, is we believe that the more authentic you are, the more
Hmm.
true you are to yourself, the happier you will be. That doesn't mean that life won't come with complications, because we've found that the truer you are to yourself, or the more boundaries you set on what you will and won't tolerate, what you want to do with your time, the more challenging it can get to the people in your life and, the current friends and family
Sure.
members and like that, right? But we teach people to do that through a visual called the layers of life. Just think of it like the Target sign, just with a lot more layers, where The innermost layer is your soul, your heart, your light, whatever you believe, but it's the essence of you, who you are, the person that you were born to be with all your likes and dislikes and quirks. And that is the person that we try to teach our listeners to honor. But as you go outside the target, you'll have spouses and children and your parents, and then you'll have your colleagues and your work and your career. And you go all the way out until you get to the outer layer, which is your title at work and your salary and social media posts and your house and your vacations. And so often, when people are dissatisfied with life, it's because they're living from the outside in. It's because they're making decisions based on the outer ring, on how will it look, or what will my boss think of me, or I promised my mom I'd be home for Christmas, but God, I just want to wake up with my own kids on
Sure.
Christmas morning. It's all of the things. And as women, we are people pleaser. Society has built this into us. And so part of the challenge and part of what we teach people is to approach each decision, each day, going from the innermost circle out. And it takes practice. But that is the reason we started 5 Year You, the core of what we teach, and how we're trying to help people.
Why 5 years? Talk to me about that.
Well, it's a great question. We get asked this a lot. And again, we sort of started this business idea during the pandemic. And so 2 years felt too short. And especially because a lot of the life goals that people have, let's say, even financial goals, becoming a millionaire, paying off a large sum of debt, or career goals, I want to do this, or even I want to start my
Mhm.
own business. These things take longer than 2 years. But then 10 years seemed like way too long
Sure.
of a time. Because if you look back 10 years, almost all of us are going to be like, I cannot believe I'm doing what I'm doing right now. And just things are vastly different. Like lots of stuff can happen in 10 years. So 5 years felt like the perfect amount of time to keep yourself accountable, to not get bored with the process, but allow you enough time to become the true idea of the person you want to be. We often refer to our 5 year selves. I'm like, what does, 5 year Kat look like? What does she wear? What does she do? How does she talk to
Sure.
people? What does she eat? And I have a vision of who she is and what she looks like. And it's not 5 years, I can let it go by. I'm not going to just instantly become her. A lot of the habits and the things that I do are going to take time in order to become the version of myself I'm trying to get to.
For sure, and I would imagine it's something that ebbs and flows as well, that even
Yeah.
after the 5 years that you're like, "Okay, it's a continuous process."
Then
Can
you
you
just kind of
share
reset
Go ahead.
another 5 years.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
What are practical self-reflection exercises or habits that maybe you can recommend to a listener? This is a mom podcast. I'm sure
Yeah.
there are some men that listen, but for particularly for the moms out there or women, for someone beginning their journey with deep personal growth, as someone who's very self-aware,
Mhm.
it takes, like you said, it takes time,
Takes
it takes a
time.
lot of work and something to really put into it. And I can see a mom being like, yeah, okay, like I have the time for it. How
Yeah.
can I even begin this? It's so
Yeah.
daunting. I'm even overwhelmed thinking about that. What does that even
Yeah.
mean? Talk to me about some
Yeah.
exercises or strategies that you can share.
So 100% understand, right? So for the listeners, I am a mother to 10-year-old boy girl twins, and I can relate to how challenging it is to be a mother and how much those little turkeys just occupy every space of your mind, every cell of your body. And it's something that happens. And in modern motherhood is especially challenging because millennial mothers, Gen X mothers are operating very independently compared to our mothers and grandmothers' generations. And we spend more time with our children than any other generation in history. And unlike our mothers, we have to contend with social media portraying an inaccurate picture of the ideals of motherhood. So, yeah, it's no wonder that all of us are completely burdened by the mental load. It's very common for us to struggle with low self worth, worrying you're not doing things well enough. And so the place that I recommend moms start, especially moms of really little kids who are just like, they literally have no space and don't know if they brush their teeth today, which, been there, girl. Like it is not easy. The way to start living from the inside out is to start honoring your choices. And it's a great thing to teach your kids because I know instantly the mom guilt is going to come in like the kids want to go to the park and I don't and, da, da, da. And you want to please your kids. You want to make them happy. This is our burden and our privilege as millennial moms, right? So I like to give the example of ordering a gluten-free pizza. Let's say eating gluten makes you itchy and, it makes your stomach hurt and you should order a gluten-free pizza. But and I know this because I have twins, y'all. You make the pizza order and one wants pepperoni and one wants cheese. And you're like, yeah, but you can just peel the pepperonis and then you'll have cheese. But they don't want to do that because then then the pizza's all broken and the whole thing. And then you're like, you know what? Forget it. I'll just order a pepperoni and a cheese and I'll just nibble on their pizza or I'll just eat their leftover mac and cheese from lunch. It'll be fine. And then you're itchy and your stomach hurts because you put yourself last. And so, even something as simple as ordering the pizza crust you want to order sends your own brain a signal that you matter, that your choices matter, that your preferences matter. And the same thing, you don't want to go to the park, but your kids are begging to go to the park. Again, you can say, I hear that you want to go to the park. Right now, it's not mommy's preference to go to the park. However, I can take you to the park at 4 o'clock today because mommy has to get done this and this. Would you like to help me do whatever it is? And I do this with my kids with bedtime a lot because I like to sleep. I've learned that it makes me a better person the next day. I've learned that I need more sleep than the average person, which really explains a lot about how difficult the early years of my twins were. But I still, at 10 years old, it's still just, oh no, mom, will you scratch my back? Will you do this? Oh no, you spent more time with him. And I'm like, no, girl, I set a timer. It was 9 minutes with him and you've gotten more now. And so you just kind of, again, honoring my preference, all the mom guilt comes in. Oh, there's only going to be so much more time that they're going to want you to scratch their backs and rub their backs in bed. One day they'll ignore you completely. One day they'll go to bed after you when they're teenagers. You're going to miss this. And so I'm like, okay, I savored it for 10 minutes. I'm here, I'm present, I enjoyed it. And now I'm honoring myself and showing my children an example of how to honor their preferences when they need it. It's not easy, but little things like that add up.
No, they do. And I think along the lines of the modern motherhood and all of that, it's also that
Yeah.
instant gratification. I think that's another thing that we all suffer with. It comes up in my groups and our WhatsApp chat I have for my moms of, we have our kids have the instant gratification because everything is at
Oh,
tips of
yeah.
their fingers and they know we have it, which is why I think our even fuse is much shorter than before, along with all the
Oh,
other
yeah.
things that you mentioned that we have to grapple with. So I'm constantly reminded of that, of when my son and I, he's 6, of us having that conversation. He really wants to do something and I'll catch myself because sometimes I'm like, okay. And then other times I'm like, no, if I give into this every time, then even his
Yeah.
instant gratification even goes more so out the window because then
Yeah.
he thinks the world revolves around him and that we
Right.
just drop everything because he wants to do this. And to your point in having that conversation, say, hey, buddy, we're not going to not do this, but right now,
Yeah.
this is what's more important in whatever that situation is. So I think there's so many life lessons that moms can be more aware of for them. But I like the approach of saying, especially for the busy moms and the personal development, of in order to really grow and do what we need to do for ourselves, we have to honor what it is that we're feeling because over time, I can see the more we don't, then it's even more
Sure.
so of like we're digging ourselves into this hole. I want to talk about your book, Mom's Got Money. What was the inspiration behind that? And what do you think some of the financial challenges that moms face? And how does your book, Mom's Got Money, kind of address those issues? So, part one, why did you write it? And number two, what are some of the challenges that you think modern moms face and how can they overcome them?
I wanted to write the book specifically for moms. I had the idea for the book soon after having the twins, and I felt like this was one area that moms struggled with because, on one hand, statistics show that millennial moms make over 80% of the financial decisions in their house, meaning you're shopping for all the stuff for your house. You're
Yes.
signing your kids up for activities, like you're doing all the things. But at the same time, there seems to be a lack of knowledge in terms of investing and
Yes.
growing wealth and different types of accounts and things like that. And I would talk to moms and they would ask me questions. And I would be having these conversations at the park with these like amazing women who were raising humans and doing all of these incredible things. And I'm like, we're doing the hardest job on earth raising these kids. Managing money and learning about this stuff
Yes.
is nothing compared to raising kids. And that is a message I wanted to impart. It is a motivational book. Every chapter shares a snippet from my own personal life stories, things with the twins, from creating a budget all the way to the last chapter, which is, learning how to give. And I teach my kids a lot about money all of the time, and I probably should teach them about other stuff too, but that's just kind of what comes up with me during the day. But I wanted to build moms' confidence with money. At the end of the day, that was the
Yeah.
primary goal, and to encourage them to take a proverbial seat at their own kitchen table and to make sure that they understood everything there was to know about their family finances, even if their partner was the one that paid the bills and things like that. It's so important to know about the money in your house, how to get into your accounts, what happens if something happens to your partner, what's your plan. The knowledge is so important. And to remind moms that the language of finance is intentionally difficult, created by like bro culture in Wall Street.
Sure.
And just because there's like a bunch of words and a bunch of different types of accounts and things that seem complicated doesn't mean that they actually are. Right. So I just wanted to present a straightforward, easy to understand book written by, mom to mom to break things down into things that were easy to understand.
I know in your book you mentioned that managing money is a form of self care.
It
Can
is.
you explain how financial literacy contributes to our overall well being and why it's so important to tackle, to get a hold on it, to learn more about it, to
Sure.
understand it?
Money causes a significant amount of stress for people. Worries about money, especially right now, we're in a high inflation market. All of us have gone to the grocery store. We've all seen prices go up. All of us want to give our kids the world. We want them to have amazing opportunities. We want them to have a better life than we had, no matter what that looks like. It is stressful for people. And the biggest reason it's stressful is because it is an unknown in so many
Mm.
people's minds.
Yes.
And a lot of people, they might be listening, well, they might not know their credit score. They might not know how much they spent that much. And that's okay because that's pretty much standard for the vast majority of the population. But with knowledge comes power. And if your child was sick and no doctor knew what was wrong with them, think about how hardcore you would go into Google. You would be scouring through Reddit threads. You would be like Mama Bear figuring out every single thing possible to make sure you could figure out how to make your child feel better. And I want moms to harness that energy and apply it to money and understand that it has the same amount of importance in that the more you understand money, the more you can create a better legacy for your family, the more you can be independent later in life and not a burden to your children, the
Yeah.
more you can create generational wealth and learn how it grows. And so it's self-care because by sitting down and looking at your numbers, creating a plan, and learning about how to grow your money, you are gifting yourself a lifetime without the stress you have right now.
For sure. Can you share with my listeners maybe 2 or 3 financial tips or suggestions to them that if you're like, "Listen, you might not be able to go all the way here, whether that's
Yeah.
higher, whatever it is, right? Finances or whatever it is, but if you're like, listen, if you can start anything today or do anything, start with these 2 or 3 tips."
Yeah. I mean, I tell everyone to start by just writing down what they spend. You can just pull up a notes app in your phone
Yes,
because so many things like we don't realize we're spending them,
sure.
or, it's like little things here and there, stopping at a gas station for after school snack, whatever whatever it is. And when you sit down, you look at the numbers. If you're someone that's like, where does it all go each month? Like, I make good money. Why am I living paycheck to paycheck, which is very common, especially right now in the current economic state that we're in? Writing down what you spend every day makes a really big impact because if you're in the habit of writing it down, it makes you pause and makes you be like, oh man, I'm going to have to write
Yes.
down this thing on my list, you know? And then sometimes it makes you tell yourself no. But really, like before doing anything, before debt payoff, before making a savings account, awareness is the biggest thing. And you said 2 to 3 tips. So, like, in addition to writing it down, I would also do the very painful thing. And you can do it on your own if you want. You can do it with a bottle of wine, like whatever makes you happy, whatever helps, pull up every account and write down your numbers. Maybe they'll surprise you and you're better than you thought. Or maybe you'll be like, oh my God, I've never added up all my debt before. I can't believe it's 40,000 or I can't believe it's 50,000.
Sure.
Whatever it is. Because again, you can't make any progress unless you know where you're starting.
For sure. And I think it ties this whole conversation
Yeah.
with the 5-year you and the money. Like it's so tied together because if you don't have a plan, how could you know or begin to create the goals of where you want to be 5 years from now? And the same thing with money. I think money is such a taboo topic. We don't
Yes.
talk about it often, but it's overwhelming to your point because education is the main thing. We don't know overwhelm us or we're like, oh, this or the misconception of well, I don't have enough money. I work paycheck to paycheck. So I don't need to know about this because I'll never get there, right? It's changing and switching that mindset. Share with my listeners what is your perfect client, especially with the 5 year, or do you even help moms with managing money? Talk to me about, yeah, how people can work with you and then how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so right now the big focus is 5U, and we do work with all people and love working with moms. We do one on one coaching, and hopefully in the future, our big goal is to host small retreats where you show up as the 5-year version of
Love it.
yourself and just have a weekend and sort of getting into that good vibration. So you can find out more about that at 5yearu.com, and it's spelled out FIVE yearu.com. And then our email list is really fun. It's 5yearu.com/future because you
Like it.
sign up to get emails from your future self. And they're like
Ooh.
1 or 2 sentences each day. So it's not like this big heavy newsletter, but it's like tips, and it can be as silly as, hey, have you flossed your teeth lately? Or something as big as, your dreams matter, or how to make someone else's day better today, or, order the gluten-free pizza crust, right? Or whatever.
Sure.
But it's something that we developed to kind of be a bright spot in your inbox for the day. And if you prefer just money content, you can find me at Mom's Got Money on Instagram.
Love it. Thank you so much, Catherine, for coming on, for sharing tips. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with my guests?
I just want to encourage, especially the mothers listening, that once again, I just want to reiterate that you have raised a human and you are powerful and capable. And if you can do that, I promise you, you can learn how to manage your money.
I love that. Thank you again, Catherine, for coming on, for a great conversation, and continued blessings to you for love and light. Thank you.
Thank you. You as well.